With free agency calming down, it is time to start looking at the draft. A series of signings and trades have provided Pittsburgh with two very good quarterbacks, the Ravens with one of the best running backs and quarterbacks on the same team, and also leaves a lot of teams with a lot of questions. It now seems obvious what Chicago will do, but the rest of the draft is not as obvious. Here is my first mock draft, the first 10 picks. With the first pick, thanks to a trade with the Carolina Panthers, the Chicago Bears select Caleb Williams from USC. The Heisman Trophy winning quarterback had 41 touchdowns and 5 interceptions while throwing for 3,633 yards last season. Now that the Bears have traded Justin Fields to the Steelers, Chicago will almost certainly take Williams here. The only potential question at this point could be if the Bears are willing to trade the pick to a team like Washington in exchange for more draft picks and only moving down one spot, but then would be unable to draft Williams. This doesn't seem likely, but you never know. Now the Commanders, assuming they don't trade up to the first pick for Williams, will still be able to choose their quarterback of the future. New head coach Dan Quinn will have to carefully decide between the most recent Heisman Trophy winner, LSU's Jayden Daniels, or North Carolina's Drake May. While at this point it could be either one of them, it seems more likely in my opinion that Washington selects Daniels. Not only the fact he just won the Heisman, but he also had 50 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and 3,812 yards compared to May, who had just 33 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and 3,608 yards. Not to mention that Daniels had 1,134 rushing yards compared to 449 from May and 121 from Williams. To add on to that, Daniels put up these incredible numbers in the SEC, considered to be one of the most, if not the most talented conference in all of college football. With all that said, I think Washington makes Jayden Daniels their quarterback of the future. New England decided not to trade for Fields, or sign any potential starting quarterback like Kirk Cousins or Russell Wilson. It now seems more likely, because of this, that the Patriots will decide not to select Ohio State wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., considered to be the best receiver in a very talented group of receivers this year, and instead will draft a quarterback, since that is now the most important need for the Patriots after trading Mac Jones to the Jaguars. The already mentioned Drake May is of course the most obvious choice, if he's still available at pick number 3. However, we should not forget about the national championship winning quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. McCarthy ended his season with 25 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and 2,991 yards passing. So, if the Patriots decide not to draft a wide receiver, then it will probably be Drake May, who is the new quarterback in New England. The Arizona Cardinals are now left with a pretty easy decision, with Kyler Murray as the team's starting quarterback, and Williams, Daniels, and May all drafted at this point. They will look to draft someone at a different position, although they will almost certainly consider trade offers, especially because they can gain not only more picks, but also still possibly get a good receiver like Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors. However, I think the Cardinals refuse to pass up the opportunity to have Harrison Jr. on the team, especially with wide receivers like Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Deebo Samuel, and DK Metcalf, just to name a few, all in their division. Now here's where things get interesting. Cousins, who was mentioned earlier in the video, left the Minnesota Vikings and signed with the Falcons. Now with Fields, Wilson, and Cousins all in new locations, Minnesota will have to find a new quarterback more than likely in the draft. The Vikings have 2 first-round picks, 11th and 23rd, and use both of them to trade up for the Chargers' 5th pick in the draft. Assuming the Vikings would like to add another quarterback, and the Chargers would like more draft picks to help build around quarterback Justin Herbert, this trade should work. With that pick, they select Michigan quarterback J.J. McCarthy. The recent national champion now brings the number of quarterbacks selected up to 4, all in the first 5 picks. The New York Giants will now look to make the best out of their situation, with the top 4 quarterbacks in the draft being gone, and select one of the many great receivers in this draft class. This offense needs help, and one way to do that is to give Daniel Jones another person to throw to. While it could be tight end Brock Bowers, it is unlikely a tight end gets drafted this high, especially with so many great receivers available. So, the Giants must now decide between Washington's Rome Odunze or LSU's Malik Nabers. Similar to Daniels and May, either one could get drafted here, but the tiebreaker will be the numbers. Odunze had 92 receptions, 15 touchdowns, and 1,640 yards, compared to Nabers, who had 89 receptions, 14 touchdowns, and 1,569 yards. So with the 6th pick in the NFL draft, the New York Giants select Rome Odunze. There is a lot of uncertainty in Tennessee, as the Titans prepare to move on from Derrick Henry, who has left to play in Baltimore with the Ravens. One thing that does seem certain for the franchise right now, however, is that the team needs to improve their offensive line and will do that in the draft. They have several options here, including Joe Alt from Notre Dame and Olu Fashanu from Penn State. In yet another situation where I think Tennessee could draft either one, I think Fashanu is a little bit better in the Titans drafted. This offseason, Atlanta has focused on bringing in new offensive talent. Kirk Cousins, for example. So with pick number 8 and no defensive players drafted yet, it would make sense for them to draft a defensive player here, right? Correct. The two best defensive players in this draft are Jared Verse from Florida State and Dallas Turner from Alabama. I think that the Falcons draft Verse, but Turner will not remain on the board much longer. The Bears recently traded for Keenan Allen from the Chargers, so Chicago will probably look to improve their defense with the offense figured out. With the Falcons taking Verse, I think the Bears take Turner. Chicago could also trade this pick, but I assume they will want to take one of the best, if not the best, defensive player in this year's draft class. The same draft class they select Caleb Williams. Now, the Jets could honestly do anything. Offensive line would not be surprising, neither would wide receiver. However, with the Jets signing Tyron Smith, I think that means they are more interested in a wide receiver. Malik Nabers is still available, but so is Brock Bowers. Bowers had 56 receptions for 7 touchdowns and 714 yards. As I said earlier, in a year with so many talented receivers, it would be very surprising to see only one get drafted in the top 10. Because of this, I think the Jets give Aaron Rodgers another person to throw to and draft LSU's Malik Nabers. So that is my first mock draft, which will very likely change. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.